Hey guys, I'm FatBuddyCat, and this is the Gx160 Race Day Mini Bike. And today, we're finally going to get this motor on the frame. Who knows? Maybe we'll even get to start it up. Let's see how far we get first. You never know what's going to happen. Actually, this should be really straightforward, because we're using the two-plate system from GoPowersports.com. And what this is just an adjustable billet plate on top of a custom MM80 adapter. The adapter plate already has the 4 holes drilled in it for the billet plate. That's if you want to run a torque converter. These slotted holes are for a Predator 212, Gx200, 160, 223, 225, whatever you're going to get on a small block, you can fit it on there and just run a clutch. Or you can put the plate on the plate and then set your motor on top of here, run that sweet, sweet torque converter. Let's get that motor on there and see how this works. These just kind of stand up like studs. The only reason they're falling down is because the plate is adjusted forward right now and there's nothing to hold it up in the slot. This is easy as placing your motor down on the studs. Before I mount this motor, I might as well put some oil in it. I ran down the DG, and this is all they had for full synthetic. Looks like this one's good for 75,000 plus RPM. Maybe we'll stick with this one. See what happens. Just gonna measure some out and top it off. Gx160 is 0.6 liters. Okay, if you don't know how to read that, that's the 600 on this side, and it's just over 20. Okay, that's fluid ounces. That's how I read everything. I do a conversion, switch to ounces. I fill up an empty bottle to where I need to be, and then I start filling my motor. I know that this one already has a little bit in it from when I was building it, okay? But honestly, it's probably not even an ounce. So I'll put about 3/4 of this in, and I'm on a flat surface. I'll tilt my motor side to side. I'll be able to see where the fill level is. I can always test it with my stick, top it off. But whatever you do, don't put too much. Your oil sensor is removed, which this one is. You gain a little bit of space. So in theory, you could go a little higher, but we'll see how this works. I think this is going to be fine. Alright, I already dribbled a little out, but when these are full, you can basically see the oil level along the bottom threads. Alright, and when you tilt them, it should just about want to splash out. I don't even want to tip it the other way. I know what's going to happen. Oh, there it is, okay? So keep an eye on it, and no need to overfill. The next step is just lining up the mounting holes on the base of your motor with these studs. Now I'm going to give you a little tip. These are Predator 212 layout. So if you set your studs next to the slots, you'll nail it every time. On this particular application, I went ahead and loosened my nuts on the bottom and slid my plate back. That way, these studs can't fall through. Once we get this thing aligned and where we're going to need to be, we're going to be coming forward. So it would be best that we place the engine on there and get a couple nuts on, so that when we do move it forward, our studs don't fall out. Wham bam bla jam. Just like that, we got our motor mounted. Almost, guys. We got a few more things to do. I have the two nuts in the front. I used a couple nylocks and some block washers in the back just because you have more room to work with. Before I tighten that down, we have to get the torque converter plate on and align our chain. I'm going to be using one of these Black Beauty jug averter plates from Go Power Sports. This is by design one of their exclusive builds anyway. Before I tighten my bolt, I like to take a back plate and hold it somewhere in the vicinity of a perfect lineup. At that point, I can check my clearance. Looks like these are going to be good to go. I have a lock washer underneath, so might as well check now instead of later. With this torque converter plate on, we can now set our chain. This is already cut. RK from Go Power Sports. Really, really nice stuff. Jason and Taylor definitely sent me in the right direction with this. Alright, with that chain on there, we can now find our alignment. If I'm not mistaken, it was all the way to the left, or pretty close to it, and then you just pull the motor forward. Let's see what happens. Alright, I'm tightened from my left to right, right up under here. There's 4 more bolts. That's my back to front. I have my tension set. I do not have one of those tensioner bolts that goes in here with the little nut over here. I gotta get one. The one that I have is kind of stripped out and used, so I'm not gonna put that on this bike. Back here, you can see the nice straight alignment that we have. Nothing's rubbing. Everything is very, very smooth. This is really starting to look cool. Yeah, I am aware of the ridiculousness of the location of the carburetor and air filter at this point. It's more the air filter. This is a long intake. They have a short one available that takes you, right up close to the manifold, but I think a smaller filter would definitely be a bit of an improvement. I don't know, it is a Honda though. The next thing is the throttle. What we need is a shroud that's going to fit into this housing and will be long enough to get us down here. The cable, as long as it has a barrel on the end that fits in here, you can use whatever you got laying around, as long as it's got the length. For instance, here's one. This is off of a Predator 79. Alright, so I can just take my clevis off and pull this cable. Even if this is too long, I can cut it short. And I have plenty of actual feed coming through here. I'll show you why. Alright, I'm all hooked up to my housing, ready for action. I have my shroud, conduit, whatever you want to call it, our cable inside. Now I just have to route it, and I'm probably just going to try to eat up the entirety of the shroud. So let me see what happens. Alright, well this worked out pretty good. I just sent it right down the same side as my brake line. Alright, brake line goes up and under, cable goes down. I'll just use some zip ties to get this thing connected to my frame. One more down here, comes up, and we have plenty of cable. Oh yeah. At this point, we need a clevis in order to attach the two cables. They give you a quick release one with the kit. I'm going to try to simplify this and just use a cable stop. I think I'm going to try to drill it out just a little bit so both of my cables pass through easier. That should be just about right. Just in case we have frayed ends or anything, I don't want to be messing around. Especially since I'll have one cable in there and trying to stuff the other one around it. I hope this works. Sweet, yeah, this will work. I just went ahead and passed the gnarly end through first. So my other end is brand new. I should be able to slide it right by since we have all that extra room for activities. Alright, and this should be easy enough to keep an eye on, but I really don't think that's going to loosen up. This thing is smooth. It's like silk, guys. It's from OMB Warehouse. Thanks, Grey Goat. Now that we have a throttle hooked up, we can hook up our fuel line. I think I got to get a pair of pliers or something. And oh, there we go. Doesn't fit too tight, so I'll see what I have for clamps that I can get on there. I might have a hose clamp. If not, I could use a small zip tie, pull it real tight, and just cut the tail off of it. This might not be ideal, but it's worked so far. Well, don't forget to clip back your 7-foot long throttle cable. I'm going to probably cut it back to like right there and put some tape or something around it, tape them together. This one, if it's not interfering with anything, I'll cut it short and try to cap the end with something. Again, not ideal, but if you have some good sharp cutters, you can snip them bad boys right off. These aren't even a name brand or anything, they're just not used very much. I have quite a few zip ties in place. I'm a big fan of doubling up. That way if one breaks, you got another. But that should be great. I also just took a little bit of electrical tape and just wrapped these two and tried to cap this one down here. I'm gonna get some rubber that I can melt to this. The same with right here. But for now, it's a little bit cleaner. I have a staged side exit header from OMB Warehouse. This one has a silicone sleeve on it. It's red, and I think it came off of an MM80 already. Some of them are closer to the frame, and some of them are not. And that's because I bent a couple out so that I had more room for the RLV on the back, because this would be the 1 5/16 one. I might be doing something different, so for the time being, we know this is going to work. Don't forget a new exhaust gasket. Top her off a little fresh 93. And turn the fuel on. Let that build up in the bowl for a few seconds. Make sure that my kill switch is plugged in and moving. We're going to add another one on the handlebars before we ride it. But to start it, I think we're good to go. Alright. This has to be tuned in. I'm not even completely familiar with the choke. I think the up position is on. I think I'm going to have to adjust the idle. On these carbs, from what I can tell, I think, yeah, this would definitely be our idle adjustment, alright? Because that screw would push some sort of a cylinder or wedge that actually moves the slide up and down slightly, and that's all that it is. So the further right you go, the further it's going to lift the slide, the more fuel and air it's going to feed. So the more fuel and air, the more RPM, the higher the idle. If there's any issues beyond that, I'm sure there's some adjustment somewhere, and it might be in the jetting. I don't think we're going to be able to tell just sitting here if we need to make a needle adjustment. It would be best if we just get this thing to have a clean idle. Let me see what I can do. Dial this thing in. got this thing set just about as low as I can go and walk away from it. Super smooth. This is what I love about these Gx160s. These short blocks are a very, very centered motor. It'll calm down. I'm probably going to want one of these on the handlebars. So this is the one I had on this Gx160, and it's a standalone grounded unit that grounds itself on the shroud and then has one wire that goes back to the coil. That's not going to quite cut it. I'm going to need a regular switch that would have a low oil sensor on it and an external ground, because that one will plug in nicely to one of these handlebar style. I tried to be really clean about this. Where I had excess from the wire coming down from the handlebars, I just took my loop in here and added 2 zip ties. I also added a couple right there. Two more underneath, just before everything kind of splits up. Oh yeah. And if that's not clean enough, you can go see my friend over at Busted Knuckles Builds. Watch how a real pro does it. Speaking of clean Megamoto MM80s, you might want to check this guy out too. Tomorrow, we're going to get to customizing this torque converter. And after that, we're going to take this thing for a ride. Because as always, it's a work in progress. Have a good night, guys. Thanks for watching. And I'll catch you on the next one.